Hello, people. Yeah, it's Bob. Everybody knows me. Robbo. Bob. I'm here to tell you another story. Some of you like my stories. You want to hear stories. Mostly all the stories, if not all of them, are all true. This is another true story. Now, this takes place probably in, let me see, probably late 60s. How old would I have been? 16, 15, 16. Probably takes place in 67, 68. I'd be about 16 or 17. Still going to school, so I would have been 16 then. Yeah, around 16, probably in 67. Yeah, but before that, before this story actually took place, I used to live up on Bleecker Street. Bobby Gass knows where that is. So, yeah, and I went to Winchester School there, Winchester. And I was in grades 6, 7, and 8. So I ended up going to Winchester School for 3 years. 3 years. And while I was there going to Winchester School, I happened to meet a friend of mine for those years that I was there. His name was Gary Chung. And he used to play guitar, and we used to go to his house, and John, another guy that I knew, he played guitar, and I played drums, and we were only like 13, 14 years old. We weren't old, probably 64 or 63 or something like that, right? So we were there, and we used to go to Gary Chung's house and play around with the guitars and drums and stuff, and, back when, mums and papas are out, and stuff like that. So anyway, he had a couple of brothers, older brothers than what he was, but when we did go to his house, we had to take our shoes off, right? Leave our shoes at the front door, and we'd be up in his bedroom playing records and stuff. But he told me that at the time, he told me that his brothers had a studio down at on Bay Street, next to the bus terminal down there. Here in Toronto, the bus terminal. So his brothers had a kung fu place down there, right? That you could turn, and they'll teach you. So he wanted to know if I wanted to go. And I said, sure, I'll go. So I think pretty sure it must have been Saturdays or something, or Sundays maybe. Wasn't through the week, so it had to be maybe Saturday or Sunday, maybe even Sundays more. But everything was closed down, but they were open then. So I started off down there. I was probably maybe 13 years old, 13, 14, and we used to go there we'll say Sunday because I'm not sure what day it was, but yeah, I used to go there all the time, most of the time, for those 3 years that I lived on Bleecker Street. And when you first went there, it was upstairs on the second floor. And the building was an older building, but the second floor was painted like gray, like dark gray, light gray, right? It looked kind of old. It was old. But in the first room you would go into there, they'd have those 5 gallons. Was it 5 gallon? 5 gallon white pails, those plastic pails, with the handles. And in one pail it would have rocks, little pebbles, kind of rocks. One had glass, not the kind of glass that you can cut your hands with. And the other one had sand. I'm pretty sure it was sand. So you used to go in there and rub your hands down inside these pails. Got your hands all rough. They were, I don't know, rough, I guess. I don't know any other word, but yeah, so you used to have to go do that for a few minutes every time you were there. Get all in there and just work your hands in there. Then, of course, you went into the room, right? Yeah, you did. You wore those little white uniforms, pretty sure. And they had the mats all over the place. So here we go, right? Me and Gary in there. So most of the time I was there, I was the one that got thrown around. I was the one that got kicked in the chest and the head and whatever. But yeah, I learned, every time you went there, you learned a little bit more, right? You learned more stuff. But so I did that for 3 years. So I did, I was all right. No, I never really, how would you want to say it? I never really got in too many fights outside or things while I was living on, up in Blaker Street. No, nothing like that really happened. Although we had a few fights with Regent Park down back in those days, but nothing really. I never got in too many serious fights. So I end up down on. I moved from on with the story. We left Blaker Street, and we went to Pape, and then we went down to Caroline Avenue. So now this is Caroline Avenue, and this is probably, like I said, has to be about 67, because I had to be like still in school, so I had to be like 16 years old. Anyway, now I'm getting on to the story part. Yeah, when I walked down Caroline Avenue, which is Caroline and Queen Street, there was a house right on the corner of the laneway, I'm pretty sure. And it was a nice looking house, and there was a guy in there, a young kid called Gus, I forget his last name, and a couple of his buddies, right? John and another guy. But anyway, for some particular reason, I got into an argument with Gus. So we ended up having a fight across the street on the laneway on the other side of the street in Caroline. So so we were fighting and all that, right? And I beat him up. I won the fight, stuff like that, right? So, and I knocked him down on the ground. He was down on the ground, and I gave him a few hits, a few of this, a few of that. He got up, and it was all over, right? It was like, fight was over. Anyway, now a little while later, this is in the summertime, like probably around this time period, and I get word that John, Gus's buddy, is looking for me. So I know. So everybody's telling me, right? Everybody in Caroline's telling me that John, trainer, what's his name? Trainer? Maybe, I forget his name. But he's looking for me. So what are you gonna do? Right? What are you gonna do? So I go up to the top of the street, and everybody's there. Fucking man, his uncles, his cousins, my friends, all the kids. Just everybody fucking knows, right? This is going down. So I got no choice in the matter. I got to show up. So we're in the back of the laneway behind Gus's house and Caroline Avenue at the laneway and stuff. And he's telling me that I beat up Gus, and he's going to beat me up, and. So, okay, then that's fine, right? So everybody knows, right? So, okay, so we get in, he's standing there like, why? He's standing there, looks like a freaking door. He's big, he's bigger. He was bigger than me at the time. He was just wide, like big, right? So I'm standing there, right? I'm going like this, and the next thing, I throw around, kick right up to the side of his head, right? Kicking right in the side of the head. Yep. Flush right in the side of the head. That usually works, right? Worked a few times. Boom, right off the bat. He should have went down, right? So. He didn't go down. He's still standing there. So, I thought to myself for a second, kind of go through your head, you can think for a second or two. You got time to think. And the next thing I know, right? He makes one of these great big gigantic yells, like a Tarzan yell, ah! Right? Like that, right? And I'm standing there, and by the time I realized what was happening, he had both his arms around me like this. He hugged me. He gave me one of these big things. He's squeezing the fucking shit out of me, right? And I'm standing there, oh, and he's just a friggin' squeezing. Then he freaking lets me go. Of course, he let me go, and I fell. I hit the fucking, I shouldn't say sidewalk, but I fell down, cement, right, or whatever. And then he sits on top of me. He sat on top of me, and he grabbed me by the fucking hair. I had long hair then too, longer than probably what it is now. But he grabbed me by the hair, and he started smashing my head on this cement. like there was a rise there, like a parking thing, like a sidewalk type thing, and he started smashing my head. Said on me, smashing the fucking shit out of me. I had snots running out of my nose, spittle running out of my mouth. My eyes were all fucking watering. I couldn't see. My eyes were like, oh, and my ears were like ringing, and my head was like, all over the place. He's pounding the shit out of me. He didn't hit me. No, he never hit me. He just pounded my fucking head like this. On the fucking, so he stops. And he stops, and I'm going, and I'm kind of looking at him, right? And I'm going, like, you know, I'm not saying anything. And he says to me, do you give up? Do you give up? I'm sitting there laying there. I'm laying on the ground looking up at him going, eyes are watering, snot, and ears ringing, you know, bells going off. And I go, what the fuck do you think? So he let me up. He let me up, and I stood up and staggered around. I think my brothers were there, one or two of them, and a couple of friends. Anyway, they helped me back down the laneway, because the laneway in the back of the house, home to my house. I walked down the laneway and went inside. Nobody was home. I don't know where my mom and dad were. But I went upstairs and laid on the bed, laid on the bed. Yeah, man, that knocked me for a loop. That took me a few days to get over that one. So I said to myself, you know what? It hurts to get beat up. Even though I didn't really get beat up, but I lost that fight. And I never really lost too many fights up until then, right? So I had no idea. Not that fights lasted that long, but it was like, yeah, that was the first time I lost a fight. Even though I never got hit in the face, never got kicked in the balls, I never got punched in like the ear or that. I was grabbed and I fell down and he just knocked my head against the sidewalk or whatever. So yeah, from that day on, I kind of thought to myself, you know, Bob, it's better to be a lover, not a fighter. So yeah, but you know, as time went by, even then, you know, a few years later, yeah, I got myself into a few fights, but that was when I was older and stuff. And some fights that would break out, you know, you get into, but other people would break it up and, you know, stuff like that. But yeah, when I was younger, yeah, a few fights, but as I got older, no. And no, I came close to a few fights, you know, but that was a long time ago. So people, it's better to be a lover, not a fighter. True story. Later.